And now, ladies and gentlemen, the one you've been waiting for all the way. He's in the room. It must be Jim. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. But let's get right down to what we came for, shall we? That's this. The Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes on incomes, from whatever source derived, without apportionment among the several states, and without regard to any census or enumeration. Oh yeah, the old 16th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. That's one the Founding Fathers never saw coming. But then, why would they, when they had vast forests to cut and sell, wildlife, meat and furs, the world wanted, and we had cheap produce, cotton, tobacco, and grains? The federal government built roads, bridges, schools, and maintained a military from taxes on the profits of foreign trade. We had abundant surpluses. Until we cleared most of the forest, killed the buffalo, and finally came to our senses and ended slavery. During the Civil War, an income tax was levied to pay for the war. Now, what a novel idea that was. It was repealed after 10 years. In 1884, Congress revived the income tax, and sure enough, it was ruled unconstitutional the following year. 1913 was the year. That's when America adopted a realistic approach to pay for the infrastructure that would fuel the greatest economy in the world. We built roads and bridges and schools. Then these smart guys built wheels and bearings and manufactured steel. And then, just as you'd suspect, some other smart guys still started building factories and shipping goods around the country. About this time, Henry Ford handcrafted an automobile from some steel and wheels and an engine that somebody else invented and built. Then there was a fateful decision that Henry had to make. What? Now with this new income tax, he had to ask himself whether he could afford to build a factory that would automate the production of his little car. After sleepless nights, he decided to risk it. Maybe the government would use some of his tax money to build and improve roads and bridges for his cars. Not only did he pay his taxes, he gave his employees bonuses. Why, you ask? So they could afford to buy the cars they made. Wow, a simple solution to the economic problem. What happened in 1951 that you almost never heard of? Certainly you never heard of it. Tom Borton. No, you really haven't heard of him, have you? There's a good reason. He didn't get famous or make much money. But he could have made money and been famous. In his lab, he built a handy machine he called a transport capsule. Word was that he could transport inanimate objects across a room as if by magic. He went to several investor groups for financing with no success, but not for the reason you would suspect. Investors recognized the industrial potential and sales potential, but they kept their money in the bank at 4% because they refused to get involved in a situation where the government could get a substantial share of the profits. You have, of course, heard of Jonas Salk, the developer of the polio vaccine. Dr. Salk removed the fear of polio from the world. Now that formula had to be worth billions and billions. My mother would have mortgaged her life to assure her sons never contracted the disease. How much did Dr. Salk make for his work? Not billions, because he refused to patent the formula and made it available to the world. What if Steve Jobs and his father had this conversation and the elder Jobs prevailed? Steve, I want my garage back. But Dad, I've got all these parts I've been collecting and I think we're going to make it work. Don't care, son. But I might be able to make some money with computers. Don't care. Even if you sell some of them, the government will tax you to death. You'll never have enough to do anything with. That would lead us to Bill Gates. His intellectual curiosity outweighed any fear of taxes. Last time I heard, Bill was doing very well indeed. How about Joe Clements? Never heard of him either, have you? Joe worked in a hospital lab and was allowed to do research on his own time. He retired from the lab and moved to Idaho in 1975. But in 1973, he examined a piece of snot, which led to hundreds of hours of research until he developed a cure for the common cold. When he was certain he had the answer, he packed his notes in his briefcase and headed for Washington, D.C. Doctors and the Bethesda Medical Lab confirmed his findings. He managed to convene a special tax subcommittee and ask for special tax status. He told the committee he was ready to end the common cold if he was granted a no-tax status. The chairman of the committee asked him if he ever heard of Dr. Strangelove, the movie, and recited the scene where it was revealed that everybody had to pay taxes, even the Coca-Cola Company, but that he would work to provide a grant to build a factory. Joe exited the committee meeting, emptied his notes from his briefcase on the steps of the Capitol, whereupon he burned the only copy of his research. Well, the world is littered with missed opportunities, many self-inflicted. Remember the old maid who said, "If they're going to tax my profits, I'll just sit on it."